You guys, I'm really excited. We just created all this amazing merch. And so if you're loving the podcast and you want to support our cause and continue to hear amazing episodes, please support us by buying some merch. I am living in these sweatshirts every day. We have a range of colors. We have hoodies, we have mugs, we have hats, we have journals. We have all of the things, and I love having them on because it's just a reminder to quiet the clock, to slow down, to like let life unfold and be happy. So there's meaning and purpose behind wearing it too, which is a nice reminder. So check out our website, quiettheclock.com, to get your merch.
I have had a year, I'm not going to lie, that I like debate it because the question is like, what is next? And then to kind of bring it back to fertility stuff, I do want to have the life that's like married, children. And then the question becomes, how do you do what I do and have the balance?
Well, very excited to have our next guest, Erica Spera. Thank you so much for being
having
here. We were joking off camera that we've been trying to schedule for so long now.
Well, in person's better, so I appreciate the flexibility.
Oh, and yours too. I mean, we've been just checking in here and there, and we've made this work. So I'm so happy to have you in person.
Yes, I'm here. I'm pretty fresh off the egg freezing.
Yeah,
so we're only like 2 months after.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So fresh in your mind, fresh in your body, maybe still. Before we get into egg freezing, I do want to talk about your career as a comedian and podcast host, because a lot of what we talk about here too is sort of these untraditional paths and kind of going outside of the box and not adhering to the societal timelines or expectations of what we should do. And when I was growing up, it was like the 9-to-5 corporate world, and I veered off that path very quickly. So I'd love to hear about your career journey because it is unique and different.
Oh man, yeah. And I had my first official full-time year of comedy podcasting, no longer in the day job game. Thank you.
That's a huge milestone.
Yeah, and I've been close to doing it, and then I would panic and pick up like something part-time, or some side thing, like because it's hard. It's hard. You save up a nest egg, you go, I'm ready to do it, and then you're like, health insurance is complicated, and then you just panic and pick something up again.
But you make such a good point, because I think a lot of people have other desires outside of those more secure jobs with the health insurance, that it is a real risk and a real leap.
Yeah.
And I think, and I'm curious for your experience, what was the point where you're like, okay, I'm going for it now?
I mean, a big thing is just feeling like you have something steady, you have enough work lined up. And for me, it was like hitting a certain number in my savings account where I kind of went, okay, let's say you don't make anything for the next couple months. Are you okay on rent? Are you okay on this thing? And then I also was living alone, changed my living situation, got a roommate, lowered my rent, was like,
Smart.
all right. Yeah. So it's like, you kind of have to downgrade your life sometimes as an option. Some people can do it without doing that. Yeah. But for me, that helped me feel safer. I was like, let me cut my expenses in half. Let me cut stuff down. Because, you get a little comfortable. You start to get a little bougie.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, look at me making money, Because once my comedy income went up, then it was like I had a dink lifestyle almost, like a dual income, no kids, right?
Oh, a dink lifestyle. I've never heard that.
Like,
I've never heard that term.
Oh, you don't know that term?
No.
Oh, yeah. So it's like, that's what it felt like, because I had a day job. Then I was making money at comedy. Boom, boom, boom. And then I was like, okay, if you want to leave the day job, you got to cut somewhere. So for me, it was kind of easy to just like, let me downgrade certain life things. And so that's kind of how it worked out for me to make the jump. So I was like, let me save, lower my lifestyle, made kind of like a 5-month plan to do that. And so here I am.
Oh my God, amazing. I think that's hard to do also, because I think, like you said, you get really comfortable with where you're at and thinking about downgrading or taking a step back, because a lot of what the narratives that helped create this title of this podcast, Quiet the Clock, is like being behind, running out of time. So you get so far in something that maybe doesn't make you so happy, and thinking about having to take a step back is also mentally hard, I think, for some people.
Well, you know what else is like, I mean, for so many years, it'd be like, I would leave my house 8 a.m. and I wouldn't get back to like 1, 2 a.m.
Oh.
So there also was this thing where it was like, I was making more money, but then I also would spend more money because I did not have the time. Yeah. So just something like cooking, making your own food. It was like, well, I'm spending more money on food because I do not have the time to be home cooking. I have to grab something while I'm out.
Right.
So there's also this game like with the time is money that you go, all right, where can I make the time? So if I leave this job, you go, all right, now your hours are open. So there's also, I don't know, playing that game a little bit.
What's the last year been like for you to be able to finally do this full time?
It's been really great, but then it's also very eye-opening.
Okay, tell me.
Because when you are busy, you go, man, if I only had the time. Then you get the time and you go, no, you still won't do it. You find parts of your life, you go, you're still going to be lazy as hell, even if you do have the time, which I guess some of us got a little window into that during the pandemic times.
Yeah. Oh God.
Where you're like, man, I would read more if I had the time. And it's like, well,
but
you
then
still
there's all
didn't.
the pressure to do that stuff when you have the time. And sometimes I think to myself, like, I don't think I really want to do those things because they're not happening whether I have time or not.
Yeah. And then when I've really learned, and I think this is something I will say, I don't want to get hate for this, but I think it's true. I think men are a lot better at outsourcing things than women are.
1,000%.
Okay. And I think that's often why they tend to be a little bit more successful.
Ooh.
As they are better at giving up control. And that is my New Year's resolution this year.
Okay.
Is finding my weak points and things I am bad at and learning that I should find someone who's better at it than me and pay them to do it.
Do you already have one thing that you know you will outsource?
Yes, I have started outsourcing social media stuff.
Yeah.
And
so
part
do
of
I, and she's here and she's
look at that. Thank you so much for all your help. And part of it also is a little bit of a mental health thing.
Yeah.
That my line of work is very online. I have to be. And there's already so much of me having to like watch myself and get better at my work with comedy and writing. And it does start to get to you.
Yeah.
To like constantly have to like look at yourself, see yourself and like body image wise. And I was like, you know what? I hate this. I'm like, I don't like doing it. I would love to pay someone else to be like, here's my comedy tape. Cut it for me where you're like, this looks like the start of the joke, end of the joke, subtitle it for me. And what's hard is like my background in college was all this stuff. So it's partly frustrating because once my income went down a bit when I made the jump, you're like, okay, your income's lower, so I should save the money. And I play that argument. You go, save the money. You have the skills. You can learn how to do this. The other part of me goes, yeah, but mentally and time-wise, is this really paying off?
Right.
And I finally was like, you had the year, and how many clips did you make? How many things did you post? And it's like, you're not doing it. Just bite the bullet, pay someone else.
Yeah.
Like, let's make the shift, pay someone else, do it a couple months. Let's see what the difference is. Like, let's see if we can make it work.
I love that assessment of where is it helpful or not helpful to keep holding on to this thing.
Yeah. And to be honest, like a lot of times I was like, you are sitting at a computer. You're not moving. You're not being healthy. I also moved to LA. You naturally move less. And I was like, you're unhappy and you're really unhappy with your health. So I was like, let's make a shift to like, you're going to focus on more movement, getting out there, getting up in the morning, moving. Because I was getting up, I was being a workhorse and I was sitting on my computer. And I was like, you're miserable doing this. So let's make it that you get up, you maybe do that for an hour, and your hour is sending that to somebody else. And have them do it because they're quicker, they're better at it. It even looks better at the end of the day. And it's like, let's try that for a couple months. Let's see if that works better.
I bet that it will.
Yeah.
And I think that it's amazing that you've taken these moments to think about where you'll be your happiest. And I think part of what happens, and we're going to get into all this with the egg freezing too, is no one ever gave us that space to think about it in that way. We're always told like, go to college, get the job. Like there is the blueprint we're supposed to follow. And there's never these moments that you're having now that I've had as well to say, what actually makes me happy? How do I want to live? How do I want to spend my time? What's good for my mental health? So I have a feeling so much is going to happen for you making those shifts.
Well, especially if you are in the creative world now, the beauty of like, when you do something creative and social media and how the world is like, well, now it's like, well, you don't need like the industry. You don't need all these other things. But the flip is though, now you can't just focus on the creative. You have to do all the other parts of it.
Yeah.
But now it's like, oh, I can't just be somebody that's a funny writer and good on stage. I have to be a video editor. I have to be good at the social media. I have to be good at the business side. And so it's like, okay, I want to make it so that I can get back to like, I get to focus on the funny and the being creative part and then outsource as much of the other stuff as I can. Because I look at my peers and I'm like, oh, the ones that are the most successful have hit the point. All of that is outsourced for them. So I'm like, honestly, it's weird that I said the job thing. I literally was at a point I was like, I think I would be happier working at a coffee shop a few hours a week, taking that money and paying someone else to do like the social media thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's your answer. That means that's how badly you don't.
Right. Now you're really clear on how much you hate doing it.
Literally, like I was like, just, I don't know, babysit someone's kid a couple hours a week and take that money and pay the social media person. You know what I mean?
People
like,
are worth it.
Stuff like that. So that's what I've learned. And part of it is control. And I'm like, it's almost hurt me that like I have the skills enough that I sit there and go, you could. But
you're right. I think as women, we want to, and in some ways we can do everything, but we're not looking at how much it is maybe harming us, right? We can multitask and we have large capacities. And I think we do like to control certain things. And so what it means to delegate, but it's hard to delegate, but the benefit of it. Yeah.
And a lot of times with artistic things, I think you're too close to it and it helps to have somebody else's eye.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And especially with something as simple as like what I think is funny, I'll have a friend look at and they'll be like, I don't get it. And then something I think is so basic and not funny, they'll go, hilarious. And I'm like, really? And I see it when I post things on social media. I'll go, this is dumb and so basic. And that clip does the best.
You're
just like, hilarious. I don't know. You go, at the end of the day, I don't know. I thought I knew what was funny and turns out I don't.
You're very funny.
Thank you.
You are very funny. Sure. When did you know you wanted to do comedy?
I feel like people don't believe this, but always.
Really?
But the thing is when you're a kid and someone's like, if you could be anything, what would you be? I would always say a stand-up comedian. But then people say, okay, but what do you want to do for work?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you want to go to college for? Yeah. And especially I grew up small town. Like there aren't jobs that are even like marketing. So if you're a kid that even says, I love to read, I love English, people say, oh, do you want to be an English teacher? Like there's nothing really outside of that. So it's like you either go to school to be like a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, and then, engineering was very big in our town.
Right. It's so small.
Yeah.
Like such a small.
And then I was the graduating class like 2009. I was the big recession hit. So then it really was like, okay, everybody going to college. It was, okay, we got to go to college for those steady jobs that lasted through the recession. Mm-hmm. And the recession even hit a lot of engineering jobs in my town because Lockheed Martin, BAE Systems. And I saw a lot of my friends' parents like get laid off during those times. So I originally went to school to be a dentist.
You're saying your dad is a dentist?
Yes. So my dad's a dentist. My brother is now a dentist.
Okay.
And my strongest subjects were math and science.
Okay.
So I stuck with it. And once I finished all the classes and it came time to take like the DATs and my brother was taking them because he's only a year older than me. I watched him like study all summer. And all I thought was just like, I'm going to get in and I don't want to go. And then I just was like, if I get in, I can't say no. Like I couldn't look at my parents and say no because I knew like, man, people like dream of this.
Other people.
Yeah. Like I was like, you're going to take a spot from somebody else and turn it down. Like,
but maybe where you think other people were dreaming of it for you too. Do you think that's what your parents?
Essentially, my dad has built a great practice in my hometown. And this is really a fucked up thought that I had back then. But I knew I was like, if I go through dental school and I end up back here and I am single here, I'm going to be single. Like, that's it.
Forever.
Yeah. Like, I was like, if I don't meet someone by that time and then I'm in this town that's small, I was like, it's over. And I will make a lot of money. I'll have a good life. I'll like own property. Like, I'll have it all. Except I didn't feel like I would have a relationship and a family. And I kind of was like, who am I going to meet here?
It's very smart for you to have that much foresight.
Like I kind of was like, if I'm going to be single, I'd rather be in a city, busting my ass, trying to work up a corporate ladder. Like, I don't know. I kind of was like, and that's what's hard. And that's also a truth about those jobs is like, yeah, everybody wants to like be thriving in the city when they're young. And then if you're like a dentist or a doctor, you got to build up clients and it's more competitive in, metropolitan area. Yeah. So my brother ended up being there and he's great. He's happy. He, met someone, he's great. But it's a thing. Like I even knew then I was like, man, it is just like men don't care as much about what your job is as a woman.
Yeah.
Like I even knew I was like, nobody cares. No one will look at me and be like, oh, dentist. Now I want to date you. You know what I mean?
Some might say the opposite, that they would be intimidated.
I mean, the word intimidated is, I already was being called that before I was ever anything, Yeah. So I just kind of was like, I don't know. I just kind of knew, I was like, I don't see that being my life. And that was another thing I knew I couldn't turn down. I was like, you're going to become a dentist and then have an opportunity to like be a part of this practice, eventually have the opportunity to buy it. And again, I wouldn't be able to turn it down.
Yeah.
Like I looked because I watched my parents build it and I was like,
and then you're on this path that really maybe not truly yours.
Yeah. I remember my dad even being like, I mean, you could be a dentist during the day and then like do comedy at night. Like he was like really, trying to get me to be there. And I once heard I run like comedy shows in my hometown because there's no comedy there. And it's great. And I've done fundraisers and it's wonderful. And I did hear a comedian ask my dad once, like, are you ever like kind of disappointed that Erica didn't go into like the family practice? And my dad didn't know I could like hear it because it was like down the table. And my dad was like, he goes, it's more I knew Erica would be a great dentist. But the bigger thing was, he said, I knew she could run the practice. And that's the difference between my brother and my personality. My brother has that like engineering mind that he said, my son would be the one to like invent the new thing in dentistry that would be like, oh, we're now all changing to this technology. But my brother does not have this desire to be like the owner and the runner, and he doesn't want like the headaches. And my dad's like, but I looked at Erica like, she'll run it, and Marcus will be like the innovative one. Because my parents have still kind of been like, if you ever, it's never too late, or like
the comedy doesn't work out.
Yeah. Or, I mean, you'll appreciate this because I'm sorry I don't know this, but do you run like your own practice?
I do, but I have an incredible, well, I guess I don't anymore because I have an incredible, runs everything, but I used to run all of it, but I have,
the headache.
I know the huge headache. And I got to a place too where I outsourced, but before that I wanted all the control, but
it's a lot. Yeah. Right. Yeah, so essentially like my mom is like the office manager.
Yeah.
With my father. Yeah. Right. So he's the head dentist and it's co-ownership. My parents have essentially been like, if Marcus wants to take it over, he could use the help and maybe you could come in and be the office manager. And my answer was, but do I get a % of the business? And they were like, well, and I go, well, how it works for you two is, mom gets the benefit because the income is the income.
Right.
I go, I wouldn't get the benefit. Like, you want me to uproot my life and come here? I was like, it'd be like I was his wife, but I don't get the wife benefits of the income. So I was like, if he wants me to do that, I get a %. Like, I'm not doing a salary, And, like, it's joking because I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
But I see what it takes. And, it's something that I'm like, it's still one of those things I'm like, could have been a different life.
Totally.
It could have been a different life.
Totally.
And, there's days like when I was at my brother's like dental graduation, I remember being like, it takes so long to get through dental school. I'll probably be like so far up the corporate ladder. And then you're sitting at graduation and you go, I mean, now it feels like that went really fast. Like I'm in Queens with 5 roommates or whatever. And I'm like, maybe I could have, sort of thing. But no, I mean, I am very happy like where I am because I've made big strides, but it's hard. The field you're in is, no matter what you're in, I feel like it's hard because it's very hard to not always compare yourself to like what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
And feel like sometimes like, oh man, when your peers start to like kind of pass you, suddenly you go, ooh, am I doing the right things?
It's so hard.
Do I need to speed up?
Yeah.
But I feel like I completely veered off your question.
No, you're right on. No, no, but I think it's all like what you said, the comparison is so huge. We talk a lot about that on here because we are always constantly comparing ourselves to other people and like, are we behind or are we running out of time? And I think with social media too, it's so hard not to fall into the comparison trap.
It's very hard.
And I think and I wonder for you too, like, do you fluctuate between like, I'm proud of where I am, I know I'll get there. And then maybe one day you're like, I'm never going to get there.
Oh, that's so hard. Yeah, it's this is so fucked up. It honestly depends who I am watching. Literally like by the day.
Really?
I've worked with some comedians that I've watched like headline a theater crushing and I admire. And I'm in the back like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
You go, I don't feel like I'm ever going to be this. And then I watch someone that I don't think is good at all. And I go, yeah, I don't yes, they were doing this,
Yeah.
And I think it was Jennifer Coolidge. Some clip she said, watch bad art. She goes, I would watch bad actors. And I'd go, they're fucking doing this?
I love that.
Then I'm going to stick in it. Like if this person has made it this far, then I got a shot. Yeah. And there oddly is some truth to that.
Now that you're saying that, I think that makes a lot of sense. I have a good friend of mine who's a country artist in Nashville, and she said it's an endurance game and you have to be able to
That's very true.
Stay in it.
Yeah, there is a weird thing sometimes, I think. I don't want to say every field, but in entertainment, there's a weird thing that there are some people that go, you just stick around long enough, something happens.
But it's hard. So I took it as like, it's so hard that people drop out. Like it gets too hard or it gets too... Or it's not on our timeline, or, we're not patient enough. I think it's like sticking through how hard it can get.
Yeah, because when I started, I was 22 and I was kind of lucky that I like started doing comedy right out of college, ended up in New York and kind of was like in the thick of it. And I remember when I started, I said, okay, I'm going to like go full speed at this and put this first for 10 years. And so I actually just turned 33. So like I hit my 10 years last year. And so I kind of had the like, all right, I'll sit and I'll reevaluate. Like, where are we? Are you happy? Do you want to keep going? Because I remember at 22, I was like, 32 is not old by any means. And you have plenty of time to pivot. And like, now that I'm 33, I'm like, I have had friends pivot at much later in life. I have a friend that just went to nursing school at 40.
Love it.
Who was waitressing till then, kind of lost, no idea. And I remember being like, all right, you sure you're going to like buckle down and do nursing school? Like, and she was like top of her class, then went to like whatever accelerated program. She had to take undergrad stuff. And now she's got a killer job, crushing it, met somebody, married. It's like I've never seen somebody just make that much of a 180.
Yeah. And such an inspiring story because we think that our life ends at a certain age or we can't do things past a certain age.
Yeah. Like, and I mean, it's not that I didn't believe in her. I just kind of was like, are you ready? She was like, I'm ready. And I watched that girl crank.
I love that.
Everything out. And like, damn. But then also when you watch someone do that, you can also go, am I doing the right stuff? Like, should I go to nursing school? Should I make the pivot? Like, it's so hard to not also feel that where you're like, because I think for me personally, what is hard is being like, I am successful. I'm paying my bills. I'm doing well, but I'm not killing it on like such a high level that like a dentist is, that it makes you go, do you stick with it? Because I think what's frustrating is feeling like I could be doing a lot of other stuff in my life. Like I'm making the choice to do this.
Yeah.
So it's like, do I want to do the other thing? And the answer still is no. But I think sometimes a lot of people in the creative field feel this like, what else would I do?
Yeah.
I don't have the skills. And I go, no, I have the skills because I've worked plenty of day jobs that I could go out and get another one. Like I have willingly left day jobs. I've turned down promotions because I didn't want more responsibility and I didn't want to make more money because I knew it would be harder to leave.
Yeah. So
I had like an opposite experience of a lot of my peers. A lot of my peers were like, I walk dogs. Like they don't have a resume.
Right.
Where I have like been hit up for jobs from people being like, hey, we have a position open here and like blah, blah, blah. This person recommended you. And I've been like, nah, I can't. And they're like, why not? And I'm like, I just can't. I can't take it because I know I'll get too comfortable. So that's like a little difficult for me. So it's very tough. It's tough because I have had a year, I'm not going to lie, that I like debate it. Because the question is like, what is next? And then to kind of bring it back to fertility stuff, I do want to have the life that's like married, children. And then the question becomes, how do you do what I do and have the balance?
Yeah.
And it's like very hard because it's not, or this gets touchy with like traditional gender roles and blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
But it's like, I want to be around.
Yeah.
I don't want to be gone all the time. Like, I would love to be like there when my kids get home from school. I would love to be at all my kids, games if they play sports, plays if they do plays. And the beauty about like what I do is it is freelance. So I can take a gig if I want. I could turn it down if I want, essentially. And especially if I'm with someone and they make some type of money. Right. It doesn't have to be killing it or whatever. But if they have like a 9 to 5, it's kind of like, okay, if you're automatically always there, I can like miss things sometime, but be there the other times. Or I can choose to be like, all right, when they're X amount of age, I'm going to be there 24/7. And then, all right, I'll like kind of be there here and there. So that's the part that's nice. But then of course, all women face the like biological clock question.
Yes.
Of how old do I want to be when I have kids? Would I want to have them past a certain age? And that I don't know.
Yeah. And so that's a nice segue into the egg freezing part is when did you start I guess first, when did you learn about egg freezing and then start considering it for yourself?
I've had a couple family members go through like a lot of rounds of IVF because they had kids later. And then classic story, one of my cousins had several rounds of IVF fail, ended up doing adoption. Adoption goes through, gets a baby, finds out her last round of IVF, she has twins.
Shut up.
So essentially she has like triplets because adopts a baby and the other ones are due in 6 months.
I've heard that happen a lot. Wow.
Yeah, which I would love to get your opinion on this. Turns out they did implement 2 embryos. It was like, I believe, a 3rd round of IVF. The other 2 didn't take. And the doctor right before the implant just looked at her and goes, how tall are you again? Like, and she goes, 5'8". He goes, you could take 2 this time. She goes, okay.
She didn't know that they were going to do 2?
She did. Well, he goes, you could take 2 because it didn't work the first 2 times with one. So he kind of was like, well, let's do 2 because it didn't take. So let's up your chance. And then the 2 both took. I mean, she's fine. Everybody's fine. Kids are healthy and everything. But it's funny that it's like, they like retell the story like, well, it was just because she was tall, it sounds like. They were like, you can handle twins if it ends up being twins. They're very happy.
That's funny.
They're great. But what's interesting, what my doctor said when I did my egg freezing was at that time, because she's about 16 years older than me. She had them, I think she was like 41.
Okay.
If she was to have frozen her eggs 10 years early, the technology wasn't as good as it is now.
Right.
And he was like, I wouldn't have told you anyone to do it like 10 years ago.
It's been so advanced. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Because she kind of jokingly said to my mother, like, should have froze my eggs. And it's like that implants a seed. And then you got, as a woman, you suddenly hit 30 and everyone's like, fertility. So I started looking into it, honestly, a little bit because of my mom in my ear. And a little bit because I actually was just having like period problems.
Oh, okay.
And I had seen a bunch of doctors and I was like, let me go to a fertility doctor and be like, does this have anything to do with fertility? What's going on? And it didn't. But then, they were like, go see this doctor, blah, blah, blah. But then I said, hey, while I'm here, can I get a whatever fertility check is? I don't even know.
You asked for it.
Yeah. I was like, can we check stuff out? Am I good? I've had a friend struggle to get pregnant, this and that. And, we never make the point to be like, okay, when you do want to get pregnant, because it's just more, don't get pregnant.
It's don't get pregnant.
Don't get
forever.
pregnant. And then the day you want to get pregnant, it's like, oh, actually, turns out you've had this problem this whole time. You've never gotten checked.
But they say don't go pregnant like it's so easy, right? Like we get this message like don't get pregnant because if you look at someone, you're going to get pregnant. Like they put the like fear of death in us.
Frightening.
Without even really telling us. I mean, they don't tell us anything. And I'd be curious about what you knew going into all this fertility stuff. But I feel like they tell us nothing. And then it's actually so hard to actually get pregnant.
This is what a lot of people say.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think part of it is just not being educated.
Right.
Like my friend was trying to get pregnant and she was like, I'm counting the 14 days. And she was counting from the end of her period. And I was like, no, it's from the beginning. And she was like, what? And I'm like, how do you? But then I go, I thought that was common knowledge. And
no,
she's like, one of the smartest people I know. And it's like, I guess not.
Right. We're not uneducated women. We're just uneducated about this.
Yeah. Which honestly, I'm like, then I don't, a lot of women will be mad when like men don't know stuff. Yeah. And I'm like, I mean, I don't know.
We know nothing. They definitely know nothing about this.
Yeah. I was like, I mean, you could like charge them for your IUD. They have no idea. You could tell them it's a monthly fee. Like, fucking use it to your advantage. Like, what are we doing? They don't know. You could be like, oh yeah, it's monthly. It's $100. Chip in, Sorry.
Now they might know.
I feel like this is a professional pod, so I've been like trying to be very professional.
You don't have to be professional.
I'm like, people are probably, this girl's not funny. And I'm like, I feel like you're a health professional and I should not say misaccurate information, but like charge them. Sorry.
I love that idea, actually. They should chip in.
They would not fight you on it. They really know nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
But then it's like, I barely know anything.
Well, exactly. Right.
Yeah. So anyway, I had like a constant kind of light period. And I was like having issues, or I would have sex and there would always be blood, even though I was like, I don't have my period. So I didn't know what was going on. And then I went to one doctor who was like, oh, you might need, I always say DNR, and that is not right. That is the Grey's Anatomy term. DNC.
DNC.
But then she was like, people don't do that anymore. And then, of course, you think our generation doesn't know anything. My mother's generation's like a million times worse. And
no one is having these conversations at all. Yeah.
My mom's like, no, that's bad. And that will hurt you. I'm like, you don't know. anything. Like my mom, because for a while I wavered on kids and I was like, I don't know, dude, there's so many horror stories about people having birth and how much it messes up your body. And my mom goes, no, having a baby is good for your body. And I was like, that is not fucking true. I don't know who said that. I was like, that's her just wanting grandkids. I was like, that's a lie. She was like, plenty of people have a baby and then are thinner after. I'm like, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that one time. But then she was freaked out about like a DNC. And I was like, you're not the one that constantly has a period. I was like, I'll take the risk. But then I struggled to find a doctor that does a DNC.
Really?
Yeah. And then I finally found the one that was like, what are you talking about? People don't do DNCs. I'm like, you're like the sixth gyno I've seen. And I'm just...
That's wild.
Yeah. I was like, I've had like constant... Like, I was like, I am going through boxes of tampons like crazy. I don't know what to tell you.
But that's the thing too, is like that how much we have to advocate for ourselves, right? You had to go find doctor number 7 to do this.
Very weird.
Yeah.
And I don't know, because then I got an IUD to be like, will this help?
$100 a month.
Yeah, $100 a month. Spending all my money. No idea. But even that, they were like fighting me because I was like, I have this like spotting. I don't know if it's from this IUD or not. And they're like, no, that's normal. And they're like, come back. At 6 months, I come back. They're like, no, wait a while. And I'm like, at month 10, I was like, take it out. They're like, wait longer. And I'm not mad. I listened. And I was just, get it out. And then finally, I was like, take it out. They take it out. Still had the problem months later. Finally found a doctor, whatever. To the DNC, then I was fine. So I was like, okay. And then everyone goes, so what was the problem? I'm like, still don't know. Still don't have the answer.
Damn.
No clue. But yeah. So I was like, that's originally what got me looking into fertility. And I was 31.
I was going to ask how old you were.
Yeah, I was 31. And I kind of got the ball rolling. And I went to a doctor that I had, oddly, a bunch of comedians I knew were going to
really?
freezing their eggs. Yeah. Who would have thought we'd be in such a lucrative market? And all of my friends were around 36, 37. And all of them were being like, if you're thinking about doing it and you can afford to do it, just do it.
Yeah.
Like, just get it done.
Were they saying to you that they had wished they had done it sooner?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the reason they did is just because they weren't decided. So they were just like, if you want to have kids, just get it done. And the place I went to also had like a no interest payment plan. So they were like, you could do the payment plan. They're like,
which is great because I think more clinics are implementing different options in that way to help ease the financial. Yeah,
because the medicine, there's no payment plan and often isn't covered. So like,
and it's so expensive.
Yeah, that's like usually at least $4,000. So they kind of were like, I saved up the money and then I found the payment plan. So they were like, paid for the meds, you know, especially because a few of them are partnered. So they were like, the embryo freezing was even more. So they were like, I just did the egg, like cross that bridge later if we get to it, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I think the hard part is like, I actually have had a few friends that very much think egg freezing is a scam.
Really?
Yes. So it's kind of touchy if it ever comes up around them.
What do they say?
I think the biggest point they make that I guess isn't wrong is that a lot of times frozen eggs do not end up getting used. And they're like, well, a fresh egg is the best. And it's like, yes, that is true. But it's like, it's all a precaution.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I think a lot of women do it. We do it for this insurance policy with realizing it might not be guaranteed. I mean, even going into it, we don't know how many eggs we're going to get, but it's a very personal decision to make that choice.
It's also just cheaper to get knocked up regularly.
Yes. It's cheaper. It's
just
less, yes. It's less emotionally draining. It's less financially draining.
Yeah.
I think they do have somewhat a point. I think at the end of the day, it's still like a business,
it
like
is
anything else. But how do you feel when they say that it's a scam?
It's one of those, I'm like, I guess we'll find out. Does that make sense? I was fortunate enough that I had the money to do it as part of it. But for me, I am slightly different situation. My brother actually does have cystic fibrosis. He has a very mild case.
Yeah, you talked about that.
Yeah, it took our family like a long time to figure out that's what he had. And so when they found out he had it, my parents, all of us got genetic testing. I'm a carrier. My sister is not. So I knew that when I have kids, I need to make sure I get my partner tested. We figured that out. So I was someone that might have to do IVF anyway.
Okay.
So that's also a factor for me.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, well, I might
Wouldn't that be amazing that you've already done like the first, if it ends up like you meet somebody that is also a carrier, you've like done the first part of it already.
Right. Because the real unfortunate thing I think is like, you would think if I have CF and my partner is a carrier for CF, then insurance would cover IVF to avoid having to then cover the insurance for a cystic fibrosis kid, but they don't.
That's such crap.
But because I'm like, that actually would be cheaper than if we have a child and you have to pay for CF meds or whatever type of care that ends up happening. But no. So that's, if anything, I'm like, the scam is that.
That's
if you want my opinion, that's what the scam.
The insurance is the scam.
Would actually be being like, hey, we're telling you to actually avoid hundreds and thousands of dollars as opposed to you paying 20 grand for an IVF kit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of a to be determined, you know, because even with my brother, he's going to be doing like kids soon, probably in a year with his wife. And I'm very curious to see what insurance is going to cover for him because he is most likely sterile and they'll have to probably try artificial insemination first, which is his sperm. But, you know, but his wife's got to get tested first. And I'm like, are they going to cover that? Because that's step one, and they could weed out any CF there, but probably not, which is so crazy to me. To be like, look at his record. How much have you spent on him?
But it's also frustrating too that like so much of this is not covered.
Yeah. So for me, I'm like, I have that extra nugget, but I guess it's like, look, if you really want kids and you have the money, it's like, if you have the money and that's not really going to hurt you financially, it's not going to put you in debt. It's not going to like prevent you from whatever your financial dream is of the future, then I'm like, do it.
Yeah.
Like if it gives you peace of mind, do it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I think what's hard is if you're on the fence. And
because it's a big, and I'm curious, like these friends that think it is a scam, are they undecided about kids? Are they?
My one friend who is decided about kids, also the egg freezing meds did not take for her. So it's hard to not believe there is like somewhat of bitterness.
Right.
That it's like, well, you really now have like a clock situation.
Yeah.
Which is, first of all, just very unfortunate.
Yeah.
Or you're now faced with the decision of, would you do a kid sperm donor on your own, which is very, very hard. And I feel for her. So it's hard. Yeah. It's hard. And obviously she's researched it more than I did. I kind of was like, I like the peace of mind. I have the financial means, which is a privilege. So I was like, look, I'm going to do it. If I end up using the eggs, great. If I end up not having to use the eggs, great.
Yeah.
Like I kind of was like, it's peace of mind. If anything, I was more worried about how many eggs am I going to get?
Yeah.
Like I was more stressed of having to face the situation of, do I do it once?
Right.
Do I do it twice?
Right.
I'm not in an employer that pays for it. Like I have a few friends that have had an employer that pays for it and they did it twice. They were like, why not?
Exactly.
And they got a lot of eggs both times. Yeah. They were like, screw it. That's getting paid for.
Might as well.
It's part of my benefits.
Right.
Like, okay. Even the ones that were undecided on kids, they were like, I don't know. I'll go through it. Sure.
But it's being paid for it. So why not?
Exactly. So it really is an individual decision. So it's so hard because I've seen everything. But I do feel like it's kind of, I hate to say trendy right now, but I feel like the technology's gotten better.
People are talking about it more.
Yeah. And it's just, I don't know. I've had a bunch of friends do it. And I think because more people are doing it, you're seeing more results.
Yes.
And I've had a few friends do it that are not getting a lot of eggs. And that is actually maybe the thing that pushed me to do it the most was like, I would like to know how many I'm going to get.
Yeah.
Because then the question is, if I did it and I got, let's say 5, then I would sit there and say, okay, I do want to do another round. And good thing I did it at age 32. That'll give me like, all right, let's say I do it in 5 years. That gives me 5 years to like save up the money again. Okay, cool. And again, I know that's a privilege, but so be it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or that gives me 5 years to be like, where am I at in 5 years? Am I with someone?
Right.
Are we serious? Yeah. Are kids on the table? Have I changed my mind? Am I like, actually, I don't know if I want, you know.
But just the peace of mind of knowing that you've done it and then allowing yourself to be able to go out and live your life without the biological clock on your back, I think is huge.
Yeah. And the real truth is I actually have always really wanted to adopt.
Oh, okay.
But the hard part is, would my partner want to adopt?
Right.
That's the part that's hard.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
See, we just
it's difficult.
Might need someone that,
But it's very hard.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'd be on board. I don't know if the other person would be on board.
Yeah. And it has to be a joint decision.
Yeah. Or sadly, the answer for a lot of men when I've brought it up has been, well, if we can't have a kid.
Oh, is that right?
And I get that. Yeah.
So you bring that up on
It's
dates.
come up before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because one guy I dated, actually, his mom was adopted. And it kind of naturally came up. But the answer usually is, I would like to have my own biological children. if I'm with my wife and we're trying and it's not happening, like, oh, then I'm open to it, which fine. And that's fair.
Yeah.
But the scary part for women is part of you thinks like, okay, if we try and it's not happening and I can't get pregnant, would you leave me though for a younger woman? Is sadly a question.
I mean, and this might not be, people might not like to hear this, but I think.
Listen, that's a real question.
No, what I'm about to say, I don't know.
Oh yeah, you make people mad. I've been talking too much.
I'll make them mad now. I think oftentimes men don't realize that they might be the problem when it comes to fertility. And they might not, it's true because men's fertility is declining so much and we get all the blame. Right. And I think there are some men, and listen, I don't want to generalize, that don't get it checked. Right. And like, so we feel like we blame ourselves enough for enough things. And I think that it's a joint situation. So I don't know. Maybe that made people mad. I don't care.
I feel like, is this repeated a lot on the pod, but what are the things that men are doing that fuck up their fertility?
There's so many toxins that for men and women, but there is a study that says by 2050 that men will be infertile. Infertile.
Like there's no sperm at all.
No sperm at all.
Not like sterile, like my brother, like he's born with a vasectomy.
No.
Completely infertile.
Yeah.
By what is it? Is it like the cell phone in the pocket? It's the phthalates. It's like everything that we're putting in our bodies. Yeah. Oh my God.
I'm blanking on the woman's name, but Shawnee something or something like that. But she does all this research on men and fertility and the phthalates and all the shit that's in all our products.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. We thought it was bad for women.
I know.
Holy crap.
I think we get the blame where it's not.
I know.
Yeah. So.
Now I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
And we get called basic bitches. And I'm like, turns out men should be more basic. And they should be like Trader Joe's hoes. Yeah. And like eating more organic.
Yes.
Damn.
Eating more organic. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. So that's the stat that's out there. But
I mean, I'm like, I still think men should pay for dates because egg freezing is very expensive. And
I agree.
And their lack of commitment is why we have to freeze our eggs.
Oh my God, that's a whole other episode. We're going to have to have you back. We're going to have to have
Now I'm like, actually, guys, take care of yourselves. What are we doing?
Exactly.
No, I'm like, we do need the sperm.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if we're gay.
Yeah.
we need to make the baby somewhere.
Or women are having babies on their own. Yeah.
I know. Wow.
How was the process for you? How did you find, you just said
I'm sorry. My brain right now is being like, do I need to like invest in a sperm bank piece now before the stock?
I don't want that to scare anybody. That's just the data that's out there. Do your own research, but that's what I've heard.
I'm like, no, I will not be having a baby in 2050. So I think I'll be all right. Sorry. That just made me be like, I feel like I should buy sperm now.
You're doing the math.
I'm like, that's, you know what I mean? Or almost buy it and I'll be reselling it. It'll be like the new Ticketmaster sperm banks.
Yeah.
Sorry. What was the question? I'm so sorry.
Let's come back. Sorry for that.
No, that was me. That blew my mind.
Knocked you.
I feel like, why did I talk about trying to be a dentist when this information was out there? I'm like, how dare I take over this pod?
How was the process for you? How did you find?
Okay, so mostly women listen to this, right? Yeah. Oh, how did I find the doctor?
How did you find the doctor? How did you find the process? What surprised you about the process?
Okay. Mostly women listen to this, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. The actual process of taking the shots. I was very nervous going in. Mm-hmm. Just like nervous to fuck it up, you know? Mm-hmm. I'm not a nurse. But like, I thought it was going to be like, I don't know, painful, hard, like shots are fine.
Yeah.
Guys, they're really not bad.
Yeah, it wasn't. I
have a lot of friends that really have like no pain tolerance. They're fine.
Yeah.
Okay? That being said, don't tell men that they're fine. Milk it. Okay. Milk it. All right. You just do a little ice pack before you take the shot. All right. But like, cause I've seen the videos, people, you know, influencers are showing you blah, blah, blah. There is a big difference between you see a woman doing the shots with like their husband, their boyfriend, whatever, and they're like in pain. And at first I was like, I mean, get over it. But then I was like, I mean, I get it. You know, you should be a little like, hurt, you know, the things we do for you. You know what I mean? Like you should. So don't tell men this, but like women listening, that's really fine. Like, it's fine. Like you're just going to be really bloated. It'll be like physically a little uncomfortable and stuff. And obviously I'm saying this, everybody reacts differently. My one friend had to take extra stuff. She had a low follicle count. So she was like, look, it's uncomfortable. I was like very bloated. Like you can't really move too much. You can like walk and stuff like that. She like very much didn't want to move. I'd like go on a long walk every day. I felt okay. But I'm like, milk the pain a little bit if you got a man. You know what I mean? Like, do that all you want. Okay. That's the part. But surprisingly, the actual process, figuring out the meds, all that stuff, fine. Like at first you're kind of like, do I need help? Like,
yeah, but by day 2, day 3, you're like, I got this. Yeah.
Literally the first time you're just like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Finding the doctor, I went through, who do I know? I had a bunch of friends have a great experience at this place. So I only really checked out 2 different places. I kind of just went by word of mouth personally, which worked out for me. I had a great experience. And then what was the third question? Was there a third thing?
I think that was all the things. Emotionally, how did you feel doing it?
I don't want to get hate for this, but can I say this?
You can say whatever you want. Yeah.
This might just be a personality thing. So maybe some people will relate to this.
Okay.
I didn't really like, so many people are very like, you're going to feel so empowered.
Oh, I did not feel empowered.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Everybody's like, let me tell you something. You freeze your eggs. You're going to feel like you could do anything. And I think I already feel like I could do anything. So it's like the whole, like, you're going to be so empowered. I was like, I don't feel empowered. All right. I was like, let's get this shit done. All right. And I just felt a little bloated. You know what I mean? Like I got it done. I came out. They were like, you got this many eggs? I was like, nice.
Were you happy with your result?
I was, because this is the frustrating part, right? You first go in, you get a follicle count. You're like, I'm doing all right. I think my estimate was like 22. And then you're taking the shots and you go in for your checkups. And then all of a sudden there kind of was a little bit of like oh no. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, what's going on? They're like, there's this like cyst that seems to have grown because of the meds, blah, blah, blah. Suddenly my count was down to 10. And suddenly they're like, the count's at 10. They're like, or whatever, they can't give you a guarantee, but they were like, now we think we're going to get 10. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, okay, all we can do is like think good things, get this done. Let's see what we get. We'll see. And I was like, I thought my count was like double that. And they're like, it is. We're not sure if we'll be able to get to it because of this cyst or whatever. We're not really going to know until we get in there. I'm like, okay. And then I was going in daily. I go in, I come out, and I ended up getting 21 and 19 were good enough to freeze.
Amazing.
So I like, when they woke me up, they're like, we got 19. I literally went, what? I go, you sure those are mine? And they go, what do you mean? I'm like, they told me I was going to get like 10. I go, can you double check?
So much uncertainty. Can you double check? Make sure they're mine that I'm about to freeze.
She looked at me like I was crazy, but I was like, I go, you sure those are mine? I was like, can you like come back? And she came back and she was like, they are yours. And they got 19. And I go, great. And I just went back to sleep and then woke back up and I was okay. So it's like, it is a roller coaster and there's nothing guaranteed, but the empowering thing does just.
I didn't feel empowered. I mean, I know that women do. I didn't. I felt
that's great if you do, but
many different things.
Yeah. I kind of was just like, I'm going to get shit done, Gail. You know, I made the decision. I was like, let's do it. Let's get it done. See if we do it once. We do it once, one and done. Great. Moving on with my life. Like, I don't,
Yeah.
Like,
do you feel that way now? You can kind of like focus on the career. You have the eggs in the bank.
I kind of feel like I've always just been focused on my career.
Okay.
So it just feels like I don't like, it's like,
but
it's more now I don't think about it.
Thinking about family at some point.
Yeah. I would love to have a family. So I think it just made it like,
does it take the pressure off? Did you feel any pressure on that?
I mean, put it this way. If I felt pressure, I'd probably be engaged by now.
Okay.
So it kind of just like,
okay,
all right, cool. Like it's just still like, all right, yeah, we don't have to marry a loser just to have a baby. Does that make sense? Like,
makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
I'm just like, okay.
That's a reason a lot of women are doing because they don't want to settle.
Yeah. I've seen it. It's pretty.
I think we've all seen it.
It's pretty bad. Yeah. Nah.
Anything. I would die to have you back on because you have a podcast on dating and we didn't get to talk about any dating.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. We talked. I always find like we run out of time. There's so much to talk about, but I'd love to have you back on to talk about
this is so great.
Dating stuff. But any last words of advice for women listening besides to charge for your IUD monthly
and your birth control? I mean, shit's expensive. I mean, truly, don't pay for dates. That's my number one advice. I don't care. Don't. It's very expensive to be a woman. Egg freezing is expensive. I felt that way before egg freezing, and now I'm like tripling down on it. I do not care.
Yeah.
My number one piece of advice. That's tough. I feel like it always changes. Can I throw to you? What would you say is your top piece of dating advice?
Dating advice. Oh my God. I've been out of dating for so long.
No, well, don't rub it in.
No, sorry.
You're like, I don't know what goes on in that world. I have no advice for you.
No,
I'm like, oh, damn.
I mean that to say that I'm so not well versed in that.
Oh, okay.
But my piece of advice, period, is I think the life that you have led and I myself going off these traditional paths is to be unafraid to do that, because I think there's so much great on the other side of that. And I think that to stay patient, to see the benefit of that. And I think you're in that space, like, just wait it out a little. I think this next year is going to be amazing for you. So I just think like move through the fear and stay patient and focus on your own journey and your own timeline.
Oh, thank you.
I just answered the question for you.
Yeah, I know. That's nice. Something I think I've changed, or my new move is, I've learned with men, is it's a little bit of the play dumb. But it's not actually playing dumb. You will never catch me doing a like da-da-da-da voice. I can't listen to my octave. I can't. If a guy says something to you and it doesn't make sense, just like ask questions and get him to explain it. And they reveal themselves. You know what I mean? Like, don't ever explain anything for men. Let them explain it themselves. And it's very telling.
I'll tell you everything.
It's very telling. Yeah. Just be like, what do you mean by that? That's all you got to say. Just go, I'm confused. I don't get it. That's all you have to say. Just go, I don't get it. You know?
Love that.
And exclusivity is bullshit. They're either your boyfriend or they're not.
Oh,
don't accept that title. Not a title. Anyway.
You know, the title I learned starting this podcast a year ago was that I didn't know.
What?
Which talks to how I'm like
afraid I don't know it either. What is it?
No, you're going to laugh at me. It was situationship. I didn't know that term until I started this podcast.
It's not a title. That's my take.
It's not a title, but term, it's not a title. It's a nothingness.
Yeah, that's a nothing.
Well, Erica, thank you so much for being here. I would love to have you back.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.